All right, Greg. So we have a lot to talk about. A lot has changed in 2 weeks. I suggested that we started with talking about like the evolution of what we've been building with. So I think kicking off with like, when did you start like with this AI building? What did you use? And then what have you changed and why? And then like as it stands today, Thursday, April 2nd, 2026.
You and I got super hyped up when OpenClaw came out. We had already been kind of working on AI stuff before that, but OpenClaw came out and like immediately I feel like everybody thought that they were about 10 years behind, right?
Yeah.
So like I think I immediately bought a Mac Mini.
You did. You were one of the Mac Mini boys.
I still have it. I still am leveraging it. And very early on, I got freaked out by like OpenClaw is basically just free unfettered access to a computer. And so there's a lot, and I even did some research and a lot of people that I trust kind of in the influencer space was like, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. And so I kind of cooled on it. And at that time, tech stack, if you will, was using Claude code in conjunction with N8N to kind of build agents and automate workflows, which works and doesn't work at the same time. So where it works is if you have a process that is always the same step from step 1 to step 35, that sort of setup works flawlessly. If the data doesn't change, the process never deviates, it's great. Where it doesn't work so well is as soon as you introduce a little bit of deviation in your process, as soon as the data input changes, then it can kind of fall apart on you. It doesn't fall all the way apart, but there's a lot more hallucinations that happen. There's a lot more stuff that can go wrong. There's a lot more opportunity for errors.
Yeah.
And so where I'm kind of have pivoted to today is I still use N8N and Claude Code to build those automations for things like pulling data on a regular basis. So whenever we're pulling financial data, we're pulling it from the same systems, we're pulling the same fields, like that works flawlessly. And those things do not break down. They don't degrade at all.
Yeah. Can you explain Claude Code and N8N in these automations using sports analogies?
Yeah. Let's see. Let me think about this for a second.
And the Green Bay Packers.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So the NFL draft is coming up, right? So right this second, there are all kinds of combines going on. Prospective draft prospects are working out. They're running 40-yard dashes, and all of that stuff is being compiled in a database, right? And then there's the Green Bay Packers who are doing their research on those draft prospects, right? So if I were working for them and they said, hey, we want to be able to analyze this stuff very quickly, what I would do is I would say, okay, we're going to send an intern out to measure all of these combine scores and these metrics and come back and put that in the spreadsheet, right? Tasking that intern to go and do that is basically what I'm using Claude Code and then producing an N8N workflow to do. So instead of telling an intern to go pull data, I'm telling Claude Code, here's the data that I want to pull, and then it goes and puts together the data pipeline to get all the data and packages it up for me. So in that circumstance, the intern's kind of like Claude Code operationalizing something in it. Then once that's set up, all I got to do is say, hey, intern, go refresh the data for new draft prospects. And the intern just goes and pulls more data, right? That action of repulling data, that's what's being automated with the N8N workflow. Now, where things get interesting is now that I've got the data and I need to analyze it, right? Now it's going to be a little bit of a higher level exercise, and there's a lot more that could go wrong. Right. I need to know that I'm looking at running backs versus quarterbacks. And then I need to know that I'm looking at 40-yard dash times versus bench press weights. Right. So in that circumstance, I wouldn't necessarily trust an intern or an automated workflow to be able to handle that nuance. I want to be able to ad hoc query sort of, hey, who are the top 5 heaviest bench pressers who also ran the best 40 times? That sort of ad hoc analysis is much better suited outside of an automation and much better suited for like interacting with Claude or Perplexity directly, right?
Got
So
it.
you would connect to the data source and then you can talk. It's kind of like talking to the data. That's sort of how things have evolved, right? Before it was just you throw everything in an end workflow, including the agent, and then you talk to the agent through Slack or Telegram or something like that.
Right.
And I mean, you've seen it firsthand too. Sometimes that stuff hallucinates, right? And
Right.
so memory is a huge challenge. Connecting to the right data is a huge challenge, and making sure all the connected skills are working correctly. That's a huge challenge too. And I just find that it's a lot easier to manage that kind of stuff in Claude directly or Perplexity directly.
Got
We
it.
don't talk about ChatGPT ever.
No, he who must not be named.
Mm-hmm.
Except I use ChatGPT, so what can you do? I'm
You're
a
a
rebel,
traitor.
I suppose. So what is your workflow evolved to from these N8N kind of agents that you built with Claude Code now? Like where are you at?
So those are still active, but I've cut out a lot of sort of the ad hoc, the stuff that was way too ad hoc to try to automate. I've carved all of that stuff out of the N8N environment. And so the only stuff that's really there are data pipelines. So pulling data from QuickBooks or open source data sources, publicly available data sources. We're using Hostfully for Pugga. So
Yep.
we've got a data pipeline set up for that. For my own business, I'm pulling out of Toggle, which is what I use to track my consulting hours and that kind of thing. Right. So N8N still handles all of that stuff and is sort of the making sure that at any given point in time, we have all of the data in a refreshed state for us to be able to use it. And then on the front end, when we're actually sort of analyzing, reporting on, leveraging that data to make decisions, I've shifted more towards skills in Claude, skills in Perplexity, and then scheduling those skills to run through Claude Cowork or Perplexity Computer. And that's what I'm still leveraging the Mac Mini for. So the
Got it.
Mac Mini still has all of this free available RAM for Claude and Perplexity to use at their discretion. All of the skills and connectors are housed within the applications themselves. So again, we don't have just API keys floating out in the ether. Everything is still connected via the same accounts we're using for everything else. And it just has a dedicated machine to leverage for the task.
So if you have like a pie of your time, like with AI tools, like what would that be broken down by application?
Application being like
Like
NA.
yeah, N8N, Claude Code, Perplexity Computer. I know not ChatGPT. It's not in there.
I would say it's probably about 50% me. And then I think the other 50% you could break down into like 10% of it is N8N, and then probably another 15% of it is Claude Code. And then the remaining, what would that be?
1%.
20%, 25%. Can't do math.
I'm not the math. I'm not the math guy.
The other 25% is actually using Cowork or Perplexity Computer.
Interesting. You're 10% N8N automations, 15% Claude Code, and then
25% Cowork or computer. Because the beauty of Cowork and computer is I can let's say I have a task that I need to do for Hugga, and then I have a task that I need to do for my business, and I have a task that I need to do for a third client, right? I can task Cowork with all of its skills that I've taught it to go and do each of those three things simultaneously, and then I just review it at the end. Reviewing is still a huge part of it, and that's why I'm still kind of 50% of the puzzle.
Yep.
Because like these things still make mistakes, right? And
Right.
if you don't review it, you're going to look like a complete idiot. But
Can
like I
you
can be 3 times as productive as I was before
right.
by just tasking these things to go operate on their own.
Can you explain to me the difference between Claude Cowork and Perplexity Computer?
They're basically the same thing, right? So the idea it's just it's like buying an iPhone versus an Android, right? You're still buying a smartphone. So in either case, you're tasking an AI model to go do something,
Mhm.
right? So you're giving it a task to go complete. In either environment, you can run the task once, you can save it so that it runs on a schedule, but in effect it's the same kind of product. I found that Perplexity is way better at things like deep research. It's been trained to do, like, to provide sources and only trust verifiable facts and sources, right? Still use a lot of the same LLMs, like you can use ChatGPT within it, you can use Claude within it, but Perplexity
Mhm.
has sort of tailored it to more of a research focus. And so I'll
Got it.
use Perplexity to kind of do market research, or we'll do things like market research, whereas Claude, it's a pretty good generalized tool to do pretty much anything. Like, so you get a lot more depth and backup on Perplexity, and then you get a lot more breadth and capability on the Claude piece. And they both function off of credits. They both function, you get credits as a part of your subscription. Perplexity is pricier. And so, like,
Mhm.
that's where you got to be a little careful about what you use them for, but I use them both. Should we do
Yeah.
a couple of use cases?
Yeah.
So here's my Claude environment, right? And over here on the left, I've got search, customize, chats, projects, artifacts, etc. Right. So if I go to customize, I can look at skills and I can look at connectors. So, like, for skills, I have a skill that always builds a financial model the same. I've got a month end financial analyst and a cash flow analyst for Hugga. So this tells it exactly how to go about doing the analysis that we need on a regular basis. I've got one that when I record meetings, it will actually read the structure of the call transcript and divvy it up into tasks and even like future blog posts and all that kind of stuff. So all the content that I'm talking about ultimately turns into follow-ups, to dos, or potentially new content. And so, like, as an example, to invoke one of these things, all I have to do is come here to a new chat and say, hey, I need a new financial model. And let's see if it
And you're in the
pulls up the skill.
Claude Mac OS app.
Correct. Correct. And it already has context to some of my here. Yeah, here. It's going down a path I don't want it to. Let me try this again.
Abort, abort.
So I want to say I need a new, and I can come in here, I can put slash financial model, or I can say I need a new financial model. And it's going to go find that skill that I wrote. It's reading the skill right now. And then it's going to produce for me the bones of my financial model. Right. There's not a whole lot in this. Like, I'm still kind of fleshing it out, but you'll see, like, it uses all of the formatting that I want in my financial model. And then when I come in here, I can just kind of get down to business. Right. And I've got my file all set up exactly how I want it to be. And then I can start, building out my P&L, and it all looks the way I want it to
Wow.
be. Right.
Yeah.
And so this is a combination of, like, creating a few Excel tabs and then building macros into those Excel files for me to then just call upon for me to be able to rapidly develop it. And even here, kind of get to this starting point, right, would probably take me, I don't know, not a crazy amount of time, maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes or something. And we just did it in 2.
Right.
So it can be very simple like that. And making the skills are pretty easy too. Like, you can use Claude to make the skill, right?
Yeah, I guess, like, walk me through how you would create a skill.
So I can come here, go to skills. I could open up a new chat and just say, hey, I want to make a skill, right? Or I can come here, skills, and I can either write one myself. So I just write it up here in a
Yeah.
markdown format, or I can say, I want to create a skill with Claude. And it basically just takes me to a new chat. And so maybe I want, my personal Gmail is a total mess.
It
I
is.
want
I
a
can I
skill.
can attest I can attest to your 3,000 email inbox.
I want a skill to help me cut through all the clutter and focus my attention on the stuff that really matters. Also, I want to have a daily brief of what emails I've received and the actions I need to take as a result.
Could you do it across multiple inboxes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be nice
Yeah.
because I have like 4 email inboxes that I
Yeah. Yeah. So in your case, if you have one workspace with multiple email addresses, all you need to do is add the access to the workspace. In my case, right, I've got Gmails, I've got Microsoft 365 accounts, right? In those
Mhm.
cases, I need a connector for Gmail and then I need a connector for Outlook.
And really a skill is a task that will run more than once. Is that
Yeah.
fair to say?
Yeah, when people talk about training their AI, skills are basically the way that the AI companies have come up for you to customize what you're doing or the things you want it to do. And that customization looks like, I want you to help me draft these emails, but I want you to use my voice, right? So here are some examples of my voice to be able to do
Yeah.
that. And so it's going to kind of interview me, right? I'm going to say family and personal. We'll just say I want to read it here in Claude. And so then the other thing you can do is really cool. You can say, I don't care about any promotional emails or automated notifications. I want a simple checklist that's grouped by priority. Anything family or personal is landing in a specific inbox. So we'll just use my personal email to classify what's family and personal. And then I want my daily brief to be scheduled using Claude Cowork so that it's just ready for me when I log onto my computer in the morning. And so it's kind of crazy because it's asking me to clarify, like it knows that I have N8N connected. So it's like, do you want to create an N8N workflow to do that? And so like these follow-up questions are tailored to exactly how I'm
It has
using
context.
the application as opposed to something generic. I've started dictating a lot more to Claude too, because I just realized that I'm a slow typer.
Yeah, I haven't got there yet.
And then while so right now it's building the skill, right? In the meantime, I can come over here to connectors and we can set up the Gmail. Right. So I connect here. It's just asking me on another screen to proceed. And I'm picking my personal Gmail and then hit continue, grant the permissions and hit OK. So that's a little personal and sensitive. So I just did it on a separate screen. But right, so basically all I'm doing is logging into Gmail, and now I'm connected to my Gmail. Now the
Yeah.
skill has the connection to Gmail that it needs to be able to sort of analyze my inbox.
Are you still using anti-gravity at all, or are you just more
Yeah, when I was talking earlier about Claude Code, I'm leveraging Claude Code through anti-gravity.
anti-gravity is your IDE?
Correct. Correct. So all the code gets written in anti-gravity, and within that environment, I have access to pretty much any LLM I can use. Gemini, Claude, the aforementioned ChatGPT, whatever. I want to have this build and then I want to do a test before we stop it. Maybe while that's running, I can show you. So being the Excel junkie that I am, Claude came out with an Excel plugin, right? So I can chat with Claude directly in Excel, which is awesome. Um,
Wow.
and all I have set up here is just a very basic, this is all sandbox QuickBooks data. So anybody could
Mhm.
go out there and pull this data. It's like a fictional landscaping business. And so I've just outlined here, here's what our beginning cash balance is. Here are all of our cash inflows. These are basically customers, right? And then here are all of our expenses by vendor. And then just some non-customer related, sales tax, credit card expenses, deposits, whatever. And so I can come in here and I can say, I want to build out a cash flow forecast on the 13-week, starting with cell E22, develop a nested if formula that will pull actuals by customer in column C from the GL tab and calculate a forecast for forecast periods. Forecast periods are denoted by FC in row 14. So I literally can tell it like, look at this tab, look at these cells, give it that context, tell it exactly what I want it to do, and then it's just going to go build that for me.
Wow.
And this has saved me. So, like before in the world of Excel, one of the most frustrating things ever is, hey, I built a formula. It looks like it should work, but it's giving me like an NA or a pound reference error, right? Before, I'd have to reverse engineer that whole thing. Here, I
Right.
can just tell, hey, troubleshoot this for me. And
Yep.
it'll troubleshoot it for me. And if there's more than one way to skin the cat, it'll ask me what option I want to use. And so it's reading through here, it's noticing, hey, Greg gave me an assumptions column. We can use that. I can clearly see what the actual and forecast periods are and all that. And let's just use like a weighted average. I don't know if you've noticed this, Chase, but there was some research that came out recently that shows that large language models have a certain way of exacerbating delusions. So it gave me a couple of choices, and whatever one I picked, it was going to tell me it's a good choice. So it
Yeah.
sort of gasses you up. You got to be careful of that, in my opinion, because it could gas you up for completely
Right.
the
Into
wrong reasons.
over the cliff. Keep driving
Right.
fast.
Right. Exactly. Let's use the last 4 weeks. Should I also build the same formula for the? Look at that. I told it just to worry about cash inflows, but it noticed, hey, you got expenses and stuff down here. Do you want me to build out that stuff too? Just do all line
Sure.
items. Well, that's chugging. Let's go back to Claude. Perfect. So it built my skill. And then once it's done, I can either download it. When I download it, it'll download it as a markdown file, or I can just save the skill. And when I save it and come back to customize and skills, now I've got my Gmail brief here.
And where does that show up? Where will you get the brief? In your Granetsky Gmail account?
Well, right now I've just told it to create it within Claude, right?
Okay.
So one way to invoke this is I can say, hey, I need my Gmail brief. And same idea. It's going to read the Gmail brief. It's going to use my connector to Gmail. And then it's going to go look at my inbox.
That is crazy.
Yeah. So I used to coach lacrosse for St. Charles, and I had an notification that I'm still on their notification system when their film breakdowns are. I got notified that the tape was ready.
You're still watching film?
Right. The other way I can do this is I can come in here to cowork. And actually, I wonder if the chat. Yeah. Okay. So it included in the skill um, uh, step-by-step instructions to set up the scheduling. So it says, so here are those instructions. But I don't need to do it on the Mac Mini. I can do it right here. So if I come to cowork and go to scheduled, I can create a new scheduled task that says summarize my inbox for Gmail and any necessary.
Is Cowork only through the Claude Mac OS app?
No, I think you can access it through the
The
web
web?
portal. You cannot access it through your phone, but they did just release this thing called Dispatch, which is
Mm-hmm.
essentially OpenClaw, right?
Yeah.
So I can go into Dispatch, and as long as I have an instance running on a remote machine, it'll detect that remote machine. I can give
Yep.
it access to it, and then I can dispatch cowork tasks to that machine. Read the Gmail brief skill and deliver me a daily briefing on my email inbox. And then when I come down here, I can set this to run daily at 6 a.m. and save. And then now this is open and ready to run.
Beautiful.
If I want to test it, I can click run now, and it basically starts the task.
Nice. Wow.
Once I give it the go ahead, it's literally, you're going to see it start to just fill out these rows. Check on our other skill. Yeah. So it basically delivered the same result in our test. But now that it's set up, every morning I'm going to get that brief now for anything that's new. And
Right.
so in order to read it, all I do is come out to Claude, come to this Gmail, daily Gmail brief, breed, and it'll give me all my history right here.
Oh, nice.
And if, let's say I didn't want it here, I wanted it emailed to me, right? I could have told the skill that I want it emailed, and it would email it to me.
Got it.
kind of whatever you want. So it literally went through, looked at how I have this set up, and then it went out and read through the GL data to figure out how exactly to populate it.
Mhm.